anything to do with anyone else. This is solely your responsibility. It doesn't matter, as women we kind of tend to travel in packs. I actually did a middle school program last night and one of the girls asked to use the restroom and I thought she was going to die because she had never gone to the bathroom before by herself. She had always taken friends with her. You will be okay, I promise. And she came back and she was okay. But we tend to travel with people around us as women. But what we have to remember is that no matter what, and I'm going to ask you guys, the acoustics in here are kind of hard to talk over, so if you could all pay attention. And I also want to make sure that all of your cell phones are off, completely off. You will survive, I promise you. Turn them off. You will survive. I know it's hard. I have a hard time too. So you are completely responsible when you go out, whether it's to an interview, whether it is to a networking event, whether it's to class, and especially on Friday night. And I know I use Friday night in general as just going out in general. I know that Wednesday night's a big night, Thursday night can be a big night, Saturday night. So we're going to put it all under the umbrella of Friday night, okay? This doesn't mean that Friday night you need to be good and Thursday night you can let it all go. So this is just about you. And you know, I was talking to Laura earlier, and a lot of times when people talk about etiquette, they always think it's about the fork. Like, okay, so which fork do I use? Is it the skinny one or the short one? And I think the fork is very important to know. I think it's important to know how to use your knife and fork. We're going to do this in the fall. But for me, what's most important to me is who you are as a person. And I really actually care. I care about your generation. And there is a little bit of a selfish endeavor, and that's because I have small girls. I have a 7-year-old and I have a 4-year-old. And who they grow up to be is very important to me. And who is going to set that for them, the tone for them, is you. And as women, we are growing up in a world where our identity is very confusing. Just as I was kind of in my, this is going to date me a little bit, my mid to late 20s, this whole Girls Gone Wild thing came out. And it was a huge shock in the beginning that girls were actually doing this and that they were putting it on TV, and I was kind of sick. But this is what we are as women sometimes portrayed to be. And we have a choice as women to move into that or to make a stance to be a different kind of a person. To have our personal brand and our personal identity mimic exactly who we are when we go out. And so, does the fork matter? Yes. Does it really matter who we are when we go out and who we know who we are and what we want to look like while we're out? Absolutely. I care more about what you do on Friday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night than I care if you know if you're using the right salad fork. That can always be learned. If you've used the wrong fork, chances are no one's going to write you a ticket for it. If you go out and you lose total composure on Friday night, chances are just about everyone you know is going to see that because it's going to be on Facebook. So that's why this is more important than the fork. So in talking about how we take your personal brand, so I know that you guys did a fantastic job in January when you had guests come out. I've heard amazing things about how the national office, how they thought you were socially, how you engaged with them. You were great hostesses. And so taking some of that responsibility that you had for that night and weaving it into everyday life is really, really important. So when we talked in January, we talked about going to this event was planning, preparing, and participating. There are 3 Ps. So we're going to move this 3 Ps kind of back into our personal identity and our personal brand and who we are. And that is planning, that is participating, and that's personal responsibility. And all of those are on the back of your little girl, your Friday night girl here. So I'm going to ask for some feedback here. This is kind of awkward to be doing it in this lecture kind of way, but we're going to go with it. So when we talk about planning, if you take your chick on the front of your paper here and what you want to look like, and you look at planning, when you're going out on in the evening, or you're going out to a networking event, or you're going to classes. How do you take those characteristics that you want to be seen as? How do you plan for what you do that night? Because planning and deciding in your mind is very, very important. When you decide that you are going to get drunk, you're going to get drunk. If you decide that you are not going to do that this time because you made the mistake last Friday, chances are you won't. You have to decide before you go out who you want to be, because when you get in those environments and there's a lot going on and it's exciting, even the smallest hint of, oh, I don't know how much I want to drink tonight, it's going to go out and you're going to get drunk. It's just going to happen. What happens when we get drunk? It's not necessarily, unless you're under 21, then it's also a legal issue, of which it also goes on Facebook because I see it. What happens when we drink too much means that we make choices and we do things that aren't necessarily in this front. I mean, unless, I don't know how many of you have a girl with a beer in her hand and she's passed out in the corner on the front of here. If any of you do, then I would like to talk to you afterwards, but chances are that's not who you want people to see you as. The girl that goes home with the first guy that looks at her, the girl who passes out in the corner, the girl who takes her shirt off, that girl probably isn't on the front. Now what happens sometimes when we drink too much, those things happen. But it's still our personal responsibility in what happens. We can't blame it on one beer too many, because people remember and Facebook doesn't lie. So planning, we have to have a plan. So with a raise of hands, we'll take one or two. What was the characteristic that you had on your personal brand? Just raise a hand. Yes.
Sociable.
Sociable. Perfect. What's another one?
Faithful and sincere.
Faithful and sincere. So when we plan to be sociable when we go out, there's a lot of great things that we can do about them. When we talked about conversation skills at the last, we're planning to invest in other people, to meet other people. And this is where, when you're in a sorority and you have all of these social events, it is the perfect time to be practicing skills that you are going to be using and need for the rest of your life. So when you're choosing to be sociable, you're choosing to practice these things that we've talked about: asking questions, listening, remembering names. Most of those things won't happen if you've had too much to drink. You're not going to remember names. You're going to say things that you didn't mean to say. You're going to represent yourself in a different way. Unfortunately, that's how it goes. Faithful and sincere. Is that faithful and sincere? So if we're planning to go out, faithful and sincere, those things are very important. So some things that we can plan for in going out and wanting to be faithful is making sure that we are denying ourselves and making sure that our friends are okay. You know, making sure that they're safe. And personal safety with women is very important. Making sure that we are looking out for the needs of others. Again, if we've had too much to drink, most likely that faithful and sincere is going to be one of the first things to go. So I want you to turn over your page, and I want you to write based on one of your 5 here. What is a way that you can plan when you leave to execute your personal brand and how you want people to see it? And the reason why going out is so important is because who you are, unfortunately, in a time that you are in college, is a time when everybody has a way of seeing what you're doing. And I have talked with a lot of employers who say that before they interview people, they check out their Facebook statuses. They just do. And they have ways of doing that, not in creepy, sleuthy ways. But I end up on friends, like children's sites, just by clicking on a picture and seeing all of these things and seeing language, and you never, ever, ever know who is seeing what you're doing. So that's why this is so important. So go ahead on the next page and write, when you plan to go out, how can you represent yourself in your plan? Does that make sense? I'm talking a lot, I know.